South Africa isn't arriving at the World Economic Forum just to shake hands and smile for cameras. It's arriving with a story to sell, a reputation to reshape, and a future to negotiate in rooms where trillions of dollars quietly change direction. In the next few minutes, you'll see what SA is really showcasing at Davos, which sectors global investors are watching, and why this moment could quietly redefine the country's economic path. Make sure you subscribe and watch all the way to the end, because the most interesting part of South Africa's WEF strategy is what's said on stage. It's what happens after the applause fades. At the World Economic Forum, countries don't compete with speeches, they compete with confidence. South Africa's presence is less about headlines and more about positioning itself in a global marketplace of trust. Every January, Davos becomes a pressure chamber where investors, presidents, fund managers, and innovators compare destinations for capital. SA steps into that space, knowing perception alone can raise or lower billions in potential investment. The country isn't pitching perfection, it's pitching momentum, showing that reform, resilience, and readiness are beginning to replace the old crisis narrative that once dominated conversations about its economy. Imagine the rooms where South Africa makes its case. Ministers sit across from global fund managers. CEOs listen carefully while infrastructure, policy clarity, and execution timelines are explained in minutes instead of months. Investors don't ask emotional questions. They ask practical ones. Can goods move faster? Can power stay on? Can contracts be trusted? SA's strategy at WEF focuses on answering those questions before they're even spoken, using real projects, timelines, and partnerships to turn interest into negotiation. One of the strongest cards South Africa brings to Davos is energy reform. For years, load shedding shaped investor hesitation. Now the message has shifted. Private power generation is expanding, renewable projects are accelerating, and grid reform is no longer theoretical. At WEF, SA highlights how stabilizing electricity isn't just about keeping lights on, but about unlocking manufacturing, mining, data centers, and logistics at scale. In global finance, energy reliability is the first signal that an economy is serious about growth. Logistics follows closely behind. Investors don't just care what a country produces, they care how fast it can move. South Africa uses WEF to show how ports, rail corridors, and trade routes are being modernized to compete globally. Durban, rail freight, and regional transport links become part of the sales story. In Davos language, faster logistics equals cheaper trade, and cheaper trade equals stronger margins for global partners considering long-term commitments. Manufacturing also takes center stage. South Africa isn't only selling raw exports anymore, it's selling value creation. Automotive hubs, chemical production, localization strategies, and export-focused industrial zones become part of the pitch. At WEF, SA positions itself as a place where products are not just mined, but built, assembled, and branded for international markets. Investors hear a shift from extraction to expansion, and that subtle change reshapes how capital evaluates risk and reward. Mining still matters, but the message has evolved. South Africa doesn't just speak about minerals, it speaks about the future of minerals. Battery metals, critical resources, ESG compliance, and beneficiation move the conversation forward. Instead of selling holes in the ground, SA sells value chains, technology integration, and responsible production. In Davos, that reframes mining as a modern growth engine instead of an old economy sector. Financial services quietly strengthen the pitch. South Africa's banking and regulatory systems remain some of the most trusted in emerging markets. At WEF, that credibility becomes currency. Investors want stability, compliance, and transparency, and SA's financial sector gives them confidence that money entering the country won't disappear into chaos. That trust layer supports everything else SA showcases, from startups to mega infrastructure projects. Tourism enters the conversation not as leisure, but as investment infrastructure. Luxury travel, conservation, hospitality development, and transport connectivity become part of the economic story. South Africa shows how tourism isn't just about visitors, but about airports, roads, digital services, green projects, and global branding. And if you're enjoying how this picture is coming together, subscribe now and stay to the end, because South Africa's most strategic advantage at WEF is still unfolding. Technology reshapes the narrative even further. SA speaks about startups, fintech, AI, data centers, and youth-driven innovation. At Davos, digital ecosystems attract faster, lighter, and more flexible capital. Investors look for places where code scales faster than concrete. South Africa uses WEF to show it's not only resource-rich, but idea-rich, capable of hosting tomorrow's industries instead of only yesterday's exports. But WEF is never just about selling strengths. It's also about managing fears. South Africa acknowledges concerns around policy uncertainty, crime, bureaucracy, and infrastructure memory. Investors appreciate honesty more than perfection. By addressing risks directly, SA signals maturity. In Davos, credibility grows when governments admit challenges while proving solutions are already in motion behind the scenes. Competition is another unspoken theme. South Africa isn't pitching alone. Brazil, India, Vietnam, and others are in the same rooms chasing the same capital. WEF becomes an arena where differentiation matters. SA emphasizes its gateway role into Africa, its deep financial markets, and its diversified economy. Investors don't just ask, is SA good? They ask, is SA better positioned than alternatives? And Davos is where those comparisons quietly take shape. Relationships at WEF often matter more than speeches. Deals rarely form on stage. They form at private dinners, side meetings, and informal conversations over coffee. South Africa understands that investment isn't transactional, it's relational. Ministers, business leaders, and global partners use Davos to plant seeds that later become site visits, feasibility studies, and eventually signed projects months down the line. Human capital strengthens the pitch further. South Africa highlights skills development, youthful labor markets, innovation hubs, and training partnerships. Investors look for people before projects. In Davos, SA shows that its population isn't just large, but increasingly capable, adaptable, and positioned for knowledge-based industries rather than only physical labor. Climate finance adds another layer. Green energy, carbon markets, sustainable infrastructure, and ESG alignment attract cheaper global funding. South Africa positions itself as a bridge between development and sustainability, appealing to funds that only invest where climate responsibility meets profitability. At WEF, green credibility becomes financial leverage. Still, messaging matters. Governments often lose investors by overpromising and underexplaining. South Africa